Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Hopefully this will not be as confusing as it totally is going to be. Grossi. And today, we're going to do something a little bit different. You see, 2 years ago, February of 2019, I created a series called Coach. Ran a 6-episode first season, then followed that up with last year's 6-episode second season, and tomorrow night, I will be revealing the release date of the highly anticipated third season. Now, when I made Coach Season 1 and Coach Season 2, I had nowhere near the amount of followers that I do now, so many are unfamiliar with the show. However, questions started coming up during the NFC and AFC East series, and so because of that, and because both of those series are linked, I figured that what I would provide you with today is a recap of every episode thus far from Coach. Now, here's a forewarning. 1, spoilers, obviously. 2, you can go and watch them in your entirety in both playlists. There's one that's called Season 1 of Coach and Coach Season 2. So you can go and check that out. This is not going to be a deep dive into the lore or anything like that. This is just a simple guide to trying to understand the series and also the fact that it exists. It will potentially illuminate some things that you saw in the AFC NFC East series, or maybe something you've seen on Bedtime Stories, in which all of those series all are stemming from Coach. So without any further ado, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, go Pack Go. The story opens up with a fictionalized Tom getting a phone call from the Green Bay Packers, offering him a chance to be the Packers head coach. All he has to do is play some games of Madden to prove that he is an all-star player worth being the next head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Does this seem logical? No? Well, it's not going to get any better. It's at this point that Tom thinks he's real hot stuff, as he's about to become the next best thing, even decorating his desk to resemble his future status. At the end of the episode, it's revealed that it in fact was not the Green Bay Packers calling Tom, but it was Tome. If you don't know who Tome is, that's for the better. The following episode picks up with Tom being a huge doucher, basically being super full of himself and deciding to blow off all of his responsibilities in order to pursue this dream of being the head coach of the Green Bay Packers by playing Madden. However, Tom's first game does not go so hot, instead getting blown out by the Seattle Seahawks. It's at that point that he realizes that maybe he will not be the head coach of the Green Bay Packers until a knock on his door reveals Tome. Episode 3 begins with Tom dealing with the antics of Tome explaining how he is offering his services to help Tom become the best head coach humanly possible. He also goes on a little bit of a mini rant talking about the relationship he has with a piece of insulation named Linda. Tom shuts Tome down, not wanting his help whatsoever, and actually wins a game of Madden. After the adrenaline wears off of his first victory, he decides instead that he could use some help, knocking on the crawl space and allowing Tome to help. In episode 4, Tom continues to hone his skills at Madden, trying to impress the Green Bay Packers, continuing to also blow off his responsibilities as he plays an entire season of Madden in one night. When he's finally done, he realizes the consequences of his actions as he has missed dinner and sits there alone. And now it's time to mention another series that was running parallel to Coach, and that was NFL Bedtime Stories. These were episodic adventures of Tom and Junior, as Junior often requested many a bedtime stories in which Tom did to his chagrin. It was revealed in this episode that these two series were linked and would have future consequences. Tom continues to play through the playoffs, making it all the way to the NFC Championship game, in which he is actually successful. This is also a reminder that, obviously, with the result of the NFC Championship game, this series is fictional. However, Tom blows off his responsibilities one too many times, lashing out, and it ultimately being revealed that Tome was the one who made the phone call, not the Green Bay Packers. Season 1 culminates in an explosive finale in which Tome reveals that he is not real. As expected, Tom does not take this well, realizing that he has neglected just about everything else in his life in order to pursue being the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Upon this realization, he searches the house to find that it is in fact empty. The season concludes with Tom returning back to his desk and starting up Madden to play the Super Bowl, realizing that he has nothing else. Oh, and also the real Mark Murphy texts Tom. Season 2 kicks off with an incredibly depressed Tom in an empty house, drinking enough so that Junior finally appears again and he doesn't have to be so alone. It's at this point that Tom and Tom have it out once again, not speaking since the finale, and it ending with the crawl space being opened. At this point, we are introduced to a brand new character, wearing all orange and immediately proving to be a significant threat, choking out Tom, and then going after Junior. Episode 2 contains one of the most frightening parts of the entire series, which is basically an entire evening of Tom being mentally and emotionally tortured by this new figure in orange. The episode concludes with Jade seemingly returning. However, it is quickly realized that this is in fact not Jade, and is instead this new character plotting his next move. In episode 3, after a lengthy discussion between Tom and fake Jade, this orange figure reveals himself and proposes being a guest on a twisted version of Packcast. Episode 4 of Season 2 is one of the most consequential episodes of the series, in which this orange character grills Tom on just about every single aspect of his life, putting him through numerous trials and eventually leading to the realization that this orange figure is in fact fear. This is where things get really weird, including your first look at the Void, and on top of that, you finally learn this new character's motivations and wants. The episode concludes with a challenge in Madden. Winner stays out here, loser goes in the crawl space. Season 2, Episode 5 features the showdown between this new character and Tom, in which Tom is defeated and is then forced and will be forced to go into the crawl space. The finale of Season 2 opens up with a flashback between Junior and this new character, whose name is finally revealed as Chamas. Tom is saying his goodbyes as he prepares to go into the crawl space, but at the last moment decides to stand up against him. A battle ensues, resulting in Chamas actually possessing Tom for a hot second. Thankfully, the crawl space knocked open allows for this fantastic moment to occur in which Tom and Junior are all reunited to fight back against Chamas, sending him back into the crawl space. It is then decided amongst the three that the only true way to stop Chamas is to go into the crawl space themselves and defeat him there, resulting in Tom and Tom to head on in. While Junior is left to keep watch, he is surprised by a brand new character, Lami. Now, it is worth mentioning at this point that a few of these characters actually appear in the NFC and AFC East series that debuted last year. Chamas being the one controlling Rocky and then leaving him to die, and then at the very end after the credits, Tom appearing before Bruce and Springsteen, unable to find Tom. So Season 3 will start off with Junior and Lami trying to cope with Tom and Tom's absence, while Tom continues his search in the crawl space, aka Tom's mind, attempting to find Tom.